Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the railway. Today I'm looking at an express passenger steam locomotive by Hornby. Can you believe that it's been 2 years since Hornby upgraded their Gresley A1s and A3s? But yeah, it has been. In 2022 they took their very old 2005 model and they upgraded it significantly. Parts of it were re-engineered, new features were added such as the firebox flicker, and they even made the running plates out of metal for the first time. And the results were absolutely stunning. When they first came out, I reviewed one of the A1s, and you can check out the review up there. It still is one of my absolute favourite models of all time. And I think this is worth emphasising because obviously there is a lot of negativity around Hornby, particularly from me. And don't get me wrong, I think that is well deserved. Hornby have done a lot that's not to like over the past 5 years, but they also do good things too, and that A1 was certainly one of them. So I've reviewed an A1 before, but I've never reviewed one of their upgraded A3s, and that's what I'm going to do today. So today I'm reviewing this. It is the Hornby A3 Lemberg in the LNER black, which I absolutely love. Now, this plain black is not the livery that I would usually choose, and for that reason I don't have a single LNER Gresley Pacific in a black livery, which I'm really excited to change because look how incredibly smart this looks. And I was over the moon when I saw that one of these became available for a price that I could afford. So this came from the Model Centre, and as you can see by their website, the full price for this now is £252.99. No way I'd be paying that, but the reduced price was 50% off at £126.49. And for what I hope is such a high quality model, that seems very good indeed. Now, a few things to look out for. Obviously, this plain black livery is going to show any imperfections. So hopefully Hornby managed to keep the glue monster at bay while these were being assembled, because yeah, that glue is going to be very easy to see if it strikes again here. Otherwise though, I know the A1 was so high quality and enjoyable. I've just got my fingers crossed that this will be as well. So with that, let's get started and let's see what this is like. So you know me, I absolutely love the most famous Gresley Pacific of them all. That's the Flying Scotsman in its beautiful LNER lined green. And that was my first choice. I did get Doncaster in the lined green. Love that model. But I do think now that we've moved on to this LNER black that this will make a nice change. However, I also recognise this was not my first choice, and it seems as though other people are the same in that regard. Now, I've come back for more. I've come back for seconds to get this black version because that first one was so good. But the thing is, the prices of these, the full prices, over £250 now, they are so high that you can understand people not coming back for seconds of these anymore. And possibly that's why this has been reduced so heavily. And certainly for me, I would not have been buying this if it was over £200. It's only the sale that caused me to get this one. But anyway, let me show you the end of the box. So the product code for this is R30087. It is the LNER Class A3 462 Lemberg. I don't think I've got another Lemberg in the collection. And it is number 45. Oh, I'm really looking forward to seeing the finish on this. But first, let me show you the back of the box. So there's the classification. It was a 7P or a 6F. Yeah, they did haul freight from time to time. And then in the middle, we've got a bit of background on the class itself. So pause and read that if you'd like to. And then on the other end of the box, you can see Hornby's drawings, which are dated 2005. So it's a good job Hornby revisited this and upgraded it, because this model was starting to slip behind modern standards before they made those upgrades. But for now, let's open this up and let me take my first look and bring you with me, of course, at this livery. Here we go. All right, there it is. Yeah, well, it looks pretty black, doesn't it? As well it should. Ooh, looking forward to this. Right, let's pull it out. Feels good and heavy, I must say, already. And that's because one of the upgrades was the die-cast running plate, which I think was well overdue, because the plastic ones did have a tendency to warp on these models. Anyway, instructions, operating and maintenance for the Class A1 and A3. I think the chassis are pretty much the same. So this is just basic. Lubrication shows you where to put your drops of oil. Body removal, and to do this you may have to remove a speedo assembly if your model has one. Removing the tender body, looks like there's a screw at the back, and that's where the DCC decoder socket is. Assembly and disassembly, how to connect and disconnect the tender. I think they upgraded the DCC sockets so that they are 21 pin now. This is still showing an 8 pin, well it's showing an 8 pin and a 21 pin, so we'll have to see what the reality is. I can't quite remember. And then on the back, brake rods, if you want to fit those to the loco and the tender. Okay, I'm glad that didn't take long because I'm ready to jump in with this now. Okay, let's see what accessories we get. There's quite a bit here by the looks of it. Oh, yeah, there is. Okay, so we've got a flanged axle here which you can fit if you want to, but then it's pretty much only good for static display. If you've got train set curves, you don't want to fit that because it won't handle them. We've got painted cylinder drain corks, which are very nicely painted too. We've got a moving screw-link coupling there. It's a nice quality feature to see. Steps which you can fit as well, and on the back here we've got the brake rigging, although only one piece, so it must be pre-fitted to maybe the tender, but we'll see. Okay, with that, let's open this up and I'll get my first look at the finish. I'm hoping for a really nice quality satin finish to this. Okay, here we go. Oh, well, we've got a fair bit of gloss in places, but that's because there's copious oil, sort of must have been spilled somewhere. And yeah, it's on this piece of plastic and it's transferred over to the boiler. Hopefully then I'll be able to get that off without it making too much of a mess. So yeah, that was a sort of spoilt first look, wasn't it? But behind the oil, it does look as though we've got a decent finish here, which I'm looking forward to seeing more closely. But anyway, let's lift this up. I think the weight of these was pretty good with the A1, and yeah, it does again feel noticeably much heavier than the original A1 and A3 model. And there it is, up close and personal for you, Lemberg. And at a glance, it does look neat and tidy, actually. I'm not really seeing much in the way of stray glue, which makes the model look really nice and tidy. So that's really good to see. And we'll take a much closer look at the level of detail and such in just a second, and we'll talk about the features and the build quality as well. But for now, let's have a bit of background on these in real life. And before I show you this up close and personal, I will try and clean off all that pesky oil. The LNER A3 started life on the Great Northern Railway in 1922 when they were introduced for mainline passenger work to the design of Sir Nigel Gresley and built at Doncaster. They were then classified as A1 locomotives. The A1 was intended to perform the tasks that the ageing Atlantics of the Great Northern were beginning to struggle with, namely the express passenger services, for which much more powerful locomotives were urgently needed. The Class A1's time with the Great Northern was relatively short-lived though, since in 1923 grouping occurred and they then became locomotives of the LNER. During the 1920s, Gresley experimented with various modifications to his A1 design, including major changes to the valve gear, new boilers capable of higher pressures, which had superheater tubes as well. Also, he made changes to the cylinders. After all of these modifications, a souped-up version of the A1 was created, and this was reclassified as the A3 or the Super Pacific. Over time, all of the A1s were rebuilt into this improved design, but it wasn't done quickly. The process wasn't completed until the very end of the 1940s. Of 78 produced in total, only one of them remains today under preservation, and that is the most famous of them all, Flying Scotsman. This example, Lemberg, was built in July 1924, withdrawn in November 64, and sadly, of course, this was not preserved. So here she is, Lemberg, up close and personal for you. And yeah, just like the green ones, I absolutely love this. I think it's presented beautifully, and I think these A1s and A3s are still some of Hornby's best models. Even though this is a very plain livery, I still find myself thoroughly enjoying it. So as you can see, the body itself has got a nice kind of satin sheen to it. That looks pretty pleasing. And the smoke box appears to have a slightly more matte finish to it, which I didn't notice with A1 Doncaster that I looked at, so maybe this is something they've tried to do a bit more recently. I do think though the effect is quite subtle. I reckon they could have gotten away with making the body itself a little bit more glossy, just to kind of make it really pop being in the black, and they could have made the smoke box a little bit more matte just to really emphasize that effect. But good to see that that's been attempted. Now, because this is in a very plain livery and my eyes not being distracted by all the colours and all the lining, I find myself looking at the model a lot more, and I've noticed a few sort of slight issues and things that I've never really noticed before. For instance, this screw beneath the boiler. I think this gives away the fact that the model is getting on in years now. Can't imagine a visible screw like that turning up on a new tooled model. Never noticed that, I don't think, on the A1. The other thing I noticed is the nameplates, and your eye is drawn to these because they're one of the few components with a bit of colour on this model. Yeah, they're not proper etched nameplates. The parts themselves may be etched, but they're not properly etched in that the lettering doesn't stand out. So the border and the lettering is just printed onto the plate, which doesn't look that great. You know, the properly etched ones where the letters stand out, they look absolutely amazing. And I think really, now that Hornby want £250+ for this at the full price, that's the sort of feature they need to be providing if they're going to be taken seriously, because yeah, the flat nameplate really doesn't look that great anymore. Otherwise though, the build quality is really good. Couple of minor issues I've spotted. The front buffer beam's not in the greatest shape. As you can see, there's visible glue spilt on here, and the hole for the coupling hook is bunged up with glue. So I'm wondering if maybe the factory worker tried to fit the vacuum pipe in there by mistake and then changed their mind. Yeah, not great. And it's a good job I'm not planning to fit the coupling hook, otherwise I'd have to dig the glue out of there. Only other issue I've noticed really is the fit of the cab to the running plate over on the other side is not great. There's visible gaps, you can see the clips. Yeah, bit of a build quality issue there. Otherwise though, it has been done excellently. So let's take a look at the rest of the decoration. You've got the red lining around the cab windows here. That looks awesome. A little splash of colour on an otherwise plain black model. That looks great. We've got the running number 45 on the side of the cab there. The builder's plate is printed onto the smoke box, some nice little detail there. And then you've got other little pipes and lubricators and turning wheels and such across the model, which are picked out in a copper colour, which again just adds a little splash of colour, just so that it's not all black. And then the buffer beam is nicely painted as well. Quite complex really. We've got the lining, we've got the running number, and even the buffer housings have been painted black separately. So a great effect. Very nice and complex looking buffer beams. The die-cast running plate brings a lot to these models. It brings a lot of benefits. First of all, it's nice and straight. As you can see, it's not really bending up at the front like the plastic ones used to, so that's great. And it's also some 30 grams heavier than the A3 before the upgrades, at 418 grams now, so it's about 30 grams more than it used to be, and it is within 1 gram of the A1. Let's talk about the details then. So we'll start at the bottom. We do have the fixed pony truck as usual with Hornby, but as you can see, the wheels are touching the rails and they do turn a little bit, which is good. Nice detailing on the pony truck as well. The moulding still looks great, and we've got the separately fitted metal rod here, which has a decent finish to it. Good looking wheels these are your usual Hornby wheels, painted black of course, and the axles are disguised. Looks like there's little separately fitted parts on the axles there. The motion, as usual from Hornby, looks absolutely great. Yeah, nice fine rods. Can't wait to see this running. I think that'll be great. Nicely detailed bogie too, of course. Sprung metal buffers. Yeah, nice quality feature there. And a pre-fitted vacuum pipe, as you can see. The running plate also has the lamp brackets pre-fitted onto it, and they look reasonably straight. And here's a look at the smoke box door, which has the separately fitted handrail, separately fitted smoke box dart, and another lamp bracket over there. The handrails across the Loco boiler, these are made of wire, and again, these do look very fine for a Loco that first came out in 2005. Nice and convincing, those. Here's the detailing across the top. We've got the single chimney here. We've got the dome as well, which appears to be moulded on, not separately fitted, so it appears flush to the boiler, which I like. And then we've got the metal safety valves here, which again, being turned metal, have a really lovely finish to them. Although the whistle here is just a little plastic blob, but it is very, very small. You can understand why they didn't make that metal. The cab has separate glazing in the windows, as you can see, that looks fine. And up on top, we've got the opening vents, which you can pose as you wish. I tend to leave them open so that you get a bit more light into the cab. Speaking of the cab, we've got cab doors pre-fitted, tender full plate, which is an etched metal piece by the looks of it, that's pre-fitted, metal handrails around the cab as well, and a very detailed cab interior. Yeah, these are done very nicely indeed. So we've got paintwork on the gauges, all of the different pipework has been picked out, lots of different components painted, and of course we've got an opening in the firebox door now with an LED behind it. Not the best implementation of the firebox flicker, I don't think, because you can clearly see the LED and it is pointing right out of the firebox, so it is going to be bright. I think I prefer the ones that shine a light through a kind of textured gel, which makes it actually look like there's fire in there, but of course it's nice to see a new feature like this. Overall, yeah, a very decent cab. The tender also looks very, very smart in this LNER black livery, and it is completely black except for the text on the side, the LNER lettering, which looks lovely, and of course the splash of red on the buffer beams. Everything else, the underframe, for example, is just left plain black, and it does look smart, I think. Decent moulding on the axle boxes and such, and as you can see, the brake rigging on the tender is pre-fitted. I also love this kind of almost streamlined shaped coal guard around the top of the tender. Adds a nice impression of complexity to the tender, I think. We've got a very detailed looking coal load here, and as we saw from the instructions, that is removable if you want to remove it. Quite a bit of detail around the front of the tender, as you can see, and we've also got more separately fitted wire handrails here as well. And then around the back, no printing at all, no plates or anything like that, just the separately fitted lamp brackets, which do seem to be very nice, fine parts. Little bit of mispainting here on the rear vacuum pipe, which is a shame to see, but not too much of a big deal. And then in terms of couplings, we've got the NEM tension lock pre-fitted to the back of the tender, and unfortunately no provision for a front coupling on the loco here, not even one included in the accessories bag, which is a pity. Would have been nice to have been able to use this to haul a train tender first. Not possible, sadly, at least not without modification. But yeah, it's a very, very beautifully detailed model. I do enjoy the black. I think possibly the finish could have been altered a little bit to emphasize the matte smoke box, but it is good to see a bit of matte on the smoke box. Level of detail, very, very impressive. Quite unbelievable that this dates back sort of almost 20 years at this point. But the upgrades and the modern treatment that this has received has made this seem a lot more modern than it really is, and I think this is perfectly acceptable to see here in 2024. Is it worth 250 quid? No, definitely not, and particularly because this doesn't have all the colours and the lining and such, there's no way on earth I'd be paying that for this. But then again, I didn't. I paid half price, and for 130 odd quid, I am perfectly happy with this. So with that, let's get this down onto the track, let's give it a test, can't wait to see this running, and we'll also take a look and see what the mechanism's like, because I forget the details actually, so it'll be nice to see that again. Okay, let's get started. So there she is, looking very imposing in this livery actually, down onto the track, and I've already filmed the initial performance test and I'll show you how that went in just a second. Next, I did my disassembly to take a look at the mechanism, and that's what I'm going to present to you now. So yeah, as I've said before on the Hornby A1s and A3s, the mechanisms generally are good. They tick most of the boxes. Overall, I would say they are good quality. However, they are starting to lag behind some sort of more modern, better releases, I would say. So let's get into this. Lots and lots of pickups. This is definitely not an issue. We've got pickups on the tender wheels, as you can see, I think every tender wheel, and then each of the loco driving wheels also has a wiper pickup on it. The loco drawbar unfortunately has not been upgraded, so we've got the same screw drawbar with the separate wire and plug. Now, when the new design works, I think I do prefer it. It's much tidier and more convenient. However, I don't mind this one too much. It is reliable and robust, so as much as it's not as neat and tidy, you know, it's not a huge problem, but pity this didn't get upgraded. The base keeper plate is held on with screws, but unfortunately the pickups are hardwired, which means you can't remove the base entirely. So that means if you want to clean the pickups or access and lubricate the bearings, you've got to take the body off and try and thread the wires from underneath the motor through a little hole in the chassis and try and gently ease the base keeper away. Much less convenient than when they use some sort of spring-loaded contacts, which allows the base keeper to be easily removed. So serviceability, not very good. You can just about see that there are proper bearings on the driving axles though, which is really good to see. And it's a fairly simple mechanism with just a single geared axle, which I think is all you need. There's nothing more complicated than this needed. Body removal is quite easy. There's just a single screw beneath the front bogie, which you can get to without removing the front bogie, which is good. Although the body is a bit of a tight fit, I did have some trouble getting it off, but you've got to kind of just gently manhandle the chassis out of there, and then the chassis eventually releases. So this is, as far as I can tell, the same chassis as before on Hornby's older A1s and A3s. So it's die-cast, decent amount of weight to it. It does have a very high quality 5-pole motor installed, but as you can see there is no flywheel on this. Again, for the money these days, I think that is a pity. A flywheel would have been a nice upgrade. Here's the other upgrade. You've got the LED, which is facing right through the firebox door. And of course this circuit board that it's on is a new feature that is new for the upgraded A3. In terms of chipping this loco, you have to go into the tender for that, and for this you remove the rear coupling, which is reasonably easy to do, and beneath there is one screw. The body then comes off quite easily, and we've got the 8-pin socket on board. Now I swore that this had been upgraded to 21-pin, but obviously I'm wrong. It's got the old 8-pin just like it always did. There's also a space for a speaker in here, but none is pre-fitted. Again, I think for 250 quid plus RRP, a pre-fitted speaker would have been a really nice inclusion, but no massive deal. And then the back-to-back gauging on the loco comes in at 14.2 quite reliably per axle, so no issues with that at all. So hopefully you can see what I mean. It's quite a basic mechanism in some areas, but at least it's got the quality motor, at least it's got the bearings, at least it's got all those pickups. So overall, while it could have been better, no major complaints with this really. And with that, let me jump back in time and show you how this ran. Okay, moment of truth. She looks beautiful, but how does she run? Well, let's see. Forwards direction, fingers crossed, please. Here we go. A bit of juice. Wow. Well, that was a pretty smooth start. And unless this was tested at the factory or by the retailer, that was its first ever run. And that was really smooth, wasn't it? Oh yeah, it's coming to life quite nicely actually. So let me just show you the kind of speed and gearing. Obviously, bear in mind this is an express passenger loco, 50%. Yeah, it seems fairly sensible and obviously can go faster. Ooh, golly, yeah, it's a quick one. It can be quick if it wants to be. Have we got the firebox flicker effect working? Yeah, we have, and actually, it's not as bright as I thought it was going to be. Yeah, it's nice and noticeable, and it is flickering, even on analog. And you even get a nice kind of reflection on the front of the tender there, which looks good. So yeah, I'm going to say, even though it's a bare LED facing straight out of the firebox, that is actually pretty effective. That looks good. Right, what is the torque like? Have we got any power here? I will do all these tests again later on, once it's running, but this is it straight out of the box. Here we go, 50%. Yeah, so it's got power to turn its wheels, not dreadfully quickly. It is slowing down a bit, but I think for an early test, that's not bad. Let's see, what else have I got to do? Ah, yes, the crawl. Can this crawl then? Let's see. Again, this may well be better after it's had a chance to run in, but straight out of the box, turning up. Oh, off it goes already. That looks good. I just turned it up and hit the sweet spot immediately, I think. Bit more. Yeah, well, it's not a coggy motion, it's a smooth motion and it's very slow. Accelerate. Yeah. Very tasty. So yeah, it seems like a beautiful runner. And just look at this thing. Yeah, I knew I'd like the black, I knew I would, but I found myself really enjoying how smart this looks. Generally, I find sort of plain black locos a bit boring. And yeah, maybe this isn't as fun as the LNER green, but just as something a little bit different for my eyes, you know, it's just a really nice change. All right, so let's run this in 50%. Let's see how it gets on around the track. All right, here she goes, and this is 50, and I'm sure that's got to be faster than it was when I ran it past you a second ago, so it's speeding up, which I think is fine. You know, this is not a shunter. This is supposed to go at speed, so it doesn't matter that it's a speedy one. And of course, plus, it can still do that amazing crawl. So doing station work, coupling to train slowly, this model can do that. And then beyond the station, it can really ramp things up and go at speed. So it's a very good and versatile runner by the looks of it. Yeah, absolutely great looking. Really, really pleased with this, actually. Again, the full price is very expensive, but at £130, this is a real bargain. Very glad I went for this. So I'll run this in fully. I'll be back in an hour's time and we'll do some testing and of course hook this up to some rolling stock. So don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Alright folks, I am back, and yeah, this is just a beautiful runner. Really, really lovely, completely reliable. At no point did this derail. I never saw it slow down on the second radius, which is great. Obviously all those pickups mean that it doesn't cut out either, so a fantastic performer. It does seem more lively now than when I first started it, so let me just demo that. I'll run by at 50 for you. Here we go. See what you think. Yeah, I think that's quicker, don't you? Yeah, I really do. Okay, now that it's warmed up, has the torque improved at all? Although it was fine before, I suppose. Here we go. Yeah, no issues with torque really, even though the loco is now quite a bit heavier than it used to be. So again, that just shows what a capable motor this is. Now I've looked back at the A1 review that I did. The crawl on that loco really wasn't that good. I would say from even the out of the box crawl, this is the better of the two performers somehow, but let's see if that's still the case now. Easing up. Gosh. Yeah, for some reason the A1 just didn't do this. It was coggy, wasn't this slow. This is outstanding. And accelerate? Sure. That acceleration was even smoother than before actually. Although that might have just been me on the controller, but no, we'll let the loco take credit for that. Can it do it in reverse? Yeah, of course it can. Yeah, it's a stunning performer. So yeah, even better than the A1. Even better. And of course this is exactly what you expect when you pay all this money. I mean, I didn't pay that much, but if I'd have bought this at the full price, which I could well have done, this is what you'd expect to get for that money in terms of performance. Really, really good. Okay, so the tractive effort I measured at 0.46 newtons, which is within a stone's throw of the A1. I think this is something like a gram lighter, and it's able to haul like one coach less than the A1 or something like that. So it's about the same, and that's about 28 coaches on straight and level track, which is about what you'd expect for a loco like this. So absolutely fine. I have set up some LNER teaks behind her. How many? I got 6 of them, so hopefully that will be a good test for this around the curves. And with a bit of luck, it won't slow down with a load either. So let's back up and test that coupling. Here we go. Making full use of that beautifully smooth acceleration there. And I should be able to do this in a very, very controlled manner, so let's try. Look how slow that is. I can't actually see it from where I am. Let me try and look at the monitor. Yeah, it's going. Nearly there. I mean, that is amazing, isn't it? What control you've got. And that was on analog, by the way, folks. So yeah, just a beautiful, beautiful runner. And I find this so reassuring because there are so many Hornby locos that I've reviewed over the last few years, which seem to be sort of poor crawlers. Their motors don't have the torque to them. They're quite disappointing sometimes, but this one seems to be firing on all cylinders. And it's really, like I say, reassuring to know that Hornby can still produce a loco that runs like this and that those good motors are still out there. So here we go, forwards. Let's do a gentle start. And we'll see how she gets on with those coaches, but here on the straight and level, it's doing it perfectly. And so on the middle line, I've got the other upgraded Hornby Grizzly Pacific that I've got. This is the A1 that I've been talking about, and it is Doncaster, which I think is better in terms of decoration, in that there's a lot more complexity here, and I do love the green, but it's not such a good performer. It doesn't crawl quite as well. Although it's obviously not terrible, but noticeably Lemberg was a bit better. And this has got some Pullmans, looks lovely with those. And then to show another famous Grizzly Pacific, I've got an A4. And this is Walter Wigan, is it? Or Walter White? Yeah, Walter White in the strange purple livery. Okay, here she goes, curve test with a load. Oh man, what a wonderful change it is to see a loco just brimming with torque, no struggling whatsoever, just performing as an expensive loco should. That is just so lovely to see. So what have we got? We've got a really good looking loco with some decent quality to it, lovely detail and performance to match. That is really, really good to see. And you know what, as infuriating as the full price is, I'm not going to complain too much about it today, because if Hornby had made this more reasonably priced, if they'd charged 200 as a full price instead of 250, they might have sold, and then they would never have been reduced to half price, and I might never have gotten this bargain. So actually, when the high prices backfire, like they have done today, I actually don't mind it too much. So yeah, Hornby, go ahead with your high prices. I'm quite happy to have picked this up at half price. And like I've been saying, for £130, this is worth every penny. And I'm glad to say that I'm enjoying this livery every bit as much as I thought I would. I think the thing is, over the years, I've experienced so many LNER green Grizzly Pacifics that they don't really kind of catch my eye that much anymore. Obviously they are beautiful locos, but I've seen them every day of my life for the last 10 years. This though is a bit of a twist on that. It's something a bit new, a bit different, and it shows this beautiful loco in a bit of a different light. So the novelty of that I really enjoy. Maybe if you've never owned an A1 or an A3, that would make no sense at all to you, and you'd probably just want to get a green one. I don't know. Let me know what you think about this black, but personally I really enjoy it, as I do the entire loco. A really nice bit of kit, this. And now for some ratings then for Lemberg Hornby's LNER Black A3. And level of detail, I've given a very nearly perfect 4.5 star. So the decoration looks great, even though it's a simple black finish, it's been done very nicely, and there's even been an attempt to make the smoke box matte, which looks much more realistic. I love the metal details such as the reverser rod and the safety valves, amazing cab with the firebox flicker effect, very, very impressive sprung buffers, etc. I am being quite harsh by knocking it off half a star, but I'm doing that because there is that visible screw underneath the boiler. Didn't spot it during the last review of the A1, but I did spot it today, so I am going to represent that in the score. Also, the nameplates are not the best quality. I think a good quality nameplate can really elevate a model, so proper etched ones would be really nice to see on these. Otherwise, fantastic detail. Performance, I'm actually not going to fault it. I'm giving it 5 star. It's an amazing performer. Now, the A1 that I looked at was not a great crawler. It really couldn't crawl, but this one is miles better. So I don't know whether Hornby have tweaked something, maybe changed something, or whether it's just the look of the draw, but this one is a fantastic crawler. Plenty of torque, no real slowdowns on the curves. 5-star performance, really, really good. Tractive effort is 0.46 newtons, or about 28 coaches on straight and level track. Perfectly adequate, I think, for an A3, and more powerful than the A3 used to be from Hornby before the die-cast running plate upgrade. So yeah, very decent pulling power. Mechanism, not the greatest in the world. I've given it 4 star. On the plus side, it's got loads of pickups in both the loco and the tender. It runs on proper bearings, it's got a quality 5-pole motor, and it's reasonably easy to DCC fit, with the socket being in the tender there. On the downside though, it's not that serviceable. The base keeper plate pickups are hardwired so that you can't really access them for cleaning without severe disassembly. Also, no flywheel on the motor. I think that's a pity given the full price of these. And also it's a slightly dated 8-pin DCC socket, not a massive deal that. But these things add up so that I can't give it 5 on mechanism, but generally, yeah, the mechanism ticks most of the boxes. Quality then, again, is really, really good. I've given this 4-star. Lovely finish on this thing, no visible seam line across the top, well decorated, no real hiccups with the decoration, and not that much visible glue, although there was a little bit on the front buffer beam, and we had that issue where the cab wasn't a great fit to the running plate. So I can't give it a 5 on quality, but generally speaking, it is a decent quality model. Above average, this 4-star. Value for money then, well, I gave the A1 3-star, but I paid a lot more for the A1. This one is quite a bit simpler in terms of livery, so you're not paying for all that lining this time, yet the full RRP was still £252.99 for this. That does seem a little bit steep, especially given some of the other sort of middle of the road features where you'd expect to see top of the range features. So yeah, I think £252.99 for this is a 2-star rating. However, I paid £126.49, that's less than £130. At that price, this is an absolute steal and would be 5-star. So I've split the difference and given it 3.5-star. I wouldn't recommend buying one of these at the full price, particularly if you can find one reduced. But overall, that's a really good score of 8.17 out of 10 and a well-deserved grade of B. Yeah, it's a really, really decent model, I think. So into the logbook it goes, and it's in second place just above the Bully Leader by KR and below the Sterling Single. Yeah, I was really impressed with the A1, and now I've been super impressed with the A3 as well. Lovely, lovely models these, which is no mean feat given the age of the tooling. Well then folks, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please do let me know what you think about this, and is there anyone out there that actually prefers the black? I don't know that I prefer it. I don't think I do. I think I prefer the green, but I do enjoy it a lot more than you might expect. So yeah, if you've got any thoughts on this livery, please do let me know what you think. But for now, thank you once again for watching, and I'll catch you again very, very soon for another review. Alright, cheers folks. You take care.